Six Flags Magic Mountain's brand new for 2026 roller coaster might have just been revealed. And let me tell you, it is definitely not what you expect. There's a ton to break down with this new development, so without further ado, let's get started. So late last night, some pictures began to surface that appeared to be showing a permit along with some accompanying artwork for a brand new roller coaster coming to Six Flags Magic Mountain in 2026. And at first, this looks like a fairly average permit, nothing too crazy going on. We knew this coaster was going to be coming from Vekoma at this point, and my initial guess was some sort of multi-launch roller coaster. Something fairly similar to the coaster I'm showing you now, just with a launch or two sprinkled throughout the layout. And when you do take a look at the permit, it does appear that there are 2 launches for this roller coaster. And we could also be potentially seeing a pretty large top hat too. Now this sounded pretty darn good. Unfortunately, it wasn't a mock striker coaster, like what was rumored about a month or so back, but this still looked like a really good roller coaster. We're talking probably 2 pretty good launches, a top hat, a couple good inversions, some nice overbank turns, some pretty comfortable trains, and an overall just really good looking roller coaster. And while it did appear to be a little bit on the shorter end, I was still expecting this coaster to pack quite the punch. But here's where things get really interesting. So that was just my first glance at this whole permit and everything. And I felt like I had a pretty good understanding of what this coaster could and probably will end up being. However, I did a little bit of digging around, and turns out this coaster is not going to be your average Vekoma multi-launch coaster. It's going to be something much more interesting, and something you've probably never even heard of. Introducing the Vekoma Launch Thrill Glider. Yeah, I didn't know it existed either. And I was able to find this pretty decent concept art of what something like this could look like. And I feel like this should help give us an idea of what to expect for this coaster. So you start out with a launch and enter an overbank turn, before hitting a second launch and going to almost like a reverse top hat with an inverted coaster. Because yes, this coaster will be suspended / inverted, whatever you want to call it, and will likely feature some of these little airtime hills per se, which would explain the almost top hat like elements of the concept art. And obviously it's not the official layout. Actually, I think that was made like 2 years ago even. But I just find that all really interesting. And yes, Six Flags did say that it would be the first of the kind here in the US, but I didn't really think they would be going for a coaster that I don't think anyone has like realistically heard of before this. Now, I'm not going to try and go and predict the entire layout. In fact, I've already tried doing that and actually had to cut it out of the video, because there was simply not enough information to make a pretty confident guess on what this layout could actually be. But some key highlights is that it will be obviously a suspended coaster. It may or may not be motorbike themed, and there is a pretty solid chance that it will feature a top hat on an inverted coaster, which I think is actually pretty cool. Along with it looks like 2 or so launches. So that's the highlights. But if you guys do want more information on the layout as it begins to become available, then make sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss out on that. Now I have to say, despite being a coaster type I've never heard of before today, that sounds honestly like a ton of fun for an inverted coaster. And I think it's definitely a unique twist that would help to like differentiate it from, say, Batman the Ride at Magic Mountain. Like, I don't think those coasters will feel similar pretty much whatsoever. I think it's definitely a unique enough concept that it can make sense in that aspect. So yeah, I would still say we're looking at probably 2 to 4 inversions, maybe 5 if they're really trying to lean into that thrill aspect. I do really like the idea of those inverted coaster airtime hills, because the way Vekoma even executed them on their family suspended coasters, they're honestly still pretty good despite being an inverted coaster. It's definitely a unique sensation that most people have never really felt. And for that, I'm pretty excited. And I also think that because the inverted coaster has been dead almost the past couple of years, like we haven't had any B&M inverts here in the US since I think 2014 with Banshee. I know there's another one in Corona Land, but even then, that was like a 6-year difference between Banshee and that. And I'm kind of starting to wonder if Vekoma will be kind of able to bring back that suspended thrill coaster. And I'm all for it with a layout like that. A couple smooth inversions, some of those unique airtime hills, a launch coaster too. I mean, that sounds pretty darn good to me. Now, there are definitely some questions that I still have about this coaster. A, what is the price tag going to look like? Is it like $10 million, or is it really getting up there into like the $20 million range? I think that'll kind of indicate, A, what type of investment Six Flags is willing to put into their flagship park, and also B, how accessible is this coaster for a smaller to like mid-tier park too. Another question I have, and I just mentioned this, is will this coaster kind of catch on? Like, if this is good, is Vekoma going to be bringing back the suspended coaster? And then C, it's been thrown around, but it could maybe be a motorbike themed roller coaster. Now that, it doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. An inverted coaster with like a motorbike theme, I don't know if that's just me, but I don't really feel like those two go together great. And I do want to reiterate, none of this is confirmed by the park, and this is still a fairly early leak. So if you do want to stay up to date on all of the latest theme park news, including this project, because a lot could still change, then make sure to subscribe because I'll keep you guys updated on this project. But back to the motorbike thing, I just don't really think it fits the style of ride great. I think if it's not an inverted coaster, then the motorbike theme is fine, but I don't know, just something about inverted coaster and motorbike just don't mix well for me. And then finally, question number 4. If Six Flags is now working with Vekoma, are we going to be starting to see a lot more Vekomas in the future? I personally feel like that's a pretty decent possibility. For Cedar Fair, whose management is basically in charge of Six Flags now, once they found a manufacturer they liked, and if they were able to deliver a successful and good product for like one park or whatever, for example B&M, they would continue to keep using them over and over again. So this does really make me wonder, if this project actually comes to fruition and it's from Vekoma, and it is successful for Magic Mountain and Vekoma and Six Flags and all that, could we see Six Flags starting to use Vekoma a lot more? And I personally think yes. But at the moment, we still do have to wait and see if this project is successful for both parties. And I think if it is, we can be seeing some really good Vekoma coasters start coming to a couple Six Flags parks. Which sounds pretty good to me. But anyway, this still excites me about what Vekoma can do here in the US. Because I've been saying it for many videos now, that I believe that Vekoma is going to be making a comeback in the US here soon. They built some awesome coasters in Europe, and it was about time for them to start making their presence known here in the US market. And I'm just really excited to see what Vekoma does here in the future. But here's the thing, we only talked about one coaster from one park in today's video. But what about the rest of the Six Flags parks? Because Six Flags literally told us what those parks were getting. And a few of those announcements were actually really interesting. And a few of them I definitely did not expect. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like down below. Make sure to subscribe for more coaster content coming your way. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you all in the next one.